Geniene Preston from Life as a Beach, and I had the opportunity of coming to stay in Ballito. And one of the things about Ballito is it's beautiful beaches and just a lovely spot. And I was fortunate enough to meet Richard Finch, who owns Ekhaya Guest House, not far off the main road, but deep enough in Ballito to be in the middle of what is known as the Ballito bush. Just stunning. Beautiful little guest house tucked away. And Richard had such an interesting story that I said, we need to talk to you. And he was telling me about from the time he was born. So we have to start again. Morning, Richard.
Good morning, good morning. Yes, I go back quite a long way. I usually tell people I'm not an old man, I'm just not so young. And I was born in 1945, which makes me 78 this coming April. And the war was just coming to an end, and my mother, my biological mother who bore me, was in the Women's Royal Air Force. And her partner was in the Royal Air Force, but she was white and he was black. And when she became pregnant, her mother and grandmother said, no, 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 you go in a home, have the child and leave it there. And so, unfortunately, the bells were not ringing when I was born. I was born in a home for unmarried mothers in East London in the east of London, in the UK. And there I could have been destined to stay or to die. In fact, 4,000 brown babies were born during the war and left behind as their fathers went back to the various Commonwealth countries. And adoption societies wouldn't touch them, they wouldn't be adopted. So I was very lucky because although for 18 months I was kept in a pillowcase tied with string, so I couldn't sit up. And fortunately, I was adopted by a wonderful, wonderful woman who just didn't see colour. And Britain was very racist at that time. She, in fact, heard about me and adopted me. Against all legal advice, she actually met my biological mother and said, if ever you want to see Richard, you can see him. I always knew I was adopted. Very interesting because my mother and father were white. I was quite dark compared with any other child. So my early memory of adults, they would bend down, ruffle my hair, say, hello, curly tops, where do you come from? And I used to say, London. I'm talking about when I'm about 4 years old. And they said, no, where do you really come from? And I used to say, London. And they said, but where do you really come from? And I was baffled by this. And my mother said, Richard's adopted. And I kept hearing this word, and I said to her one day, you keep saying I'm adopted, what does that mean? And she said, it means you're very special. We chose you, which was very, very nice. She told me about my father. She met him once. Because when I came home from school at the age of 5, first day at school, if you're slightly different, you get teased and bullied. I came home, they were calling me Blackie and nigger. 62 years later, I come to Namibia in Africa, and they call me Mr. Richard, the white man.
Oh my goodness.
So, however, I had a wonderful childhood because I was told the truth at a time when there were so many lies and secrets around. And to cut a long story short, there was an annual visit to see my biological mother. I called Auntie Joyce because I had a mother. I called her Auntie Joyce. And when I was 13, and that's when you start wondering all sorts of things, I said to my mum, is Auntie Joyce my real mother? I remember saying that. And she said yes. And I said to her, I'm glad I was adopted. My biological mother never had any children. She married, but she never told anybody till the day she died that she'd had a child.
Oh, my word.
Nobody at all. Her husband knew she was married.
Did you meet your dad?
I met my father. I was doing a lot of work in the 80s in Britain on multiculturalism. The media images of black people, and they haven't changed a lot, were either starving children with flies buzzing around their heads, following the Ethiopian famine, etc., etc., or race riots and fighting and so on and so forth. So I started bringing Black and Asian artists into schools to work with children. African drummers, batik artists, henna painters, all sorts of things, so that they were working alongside white children, so that white children had
So a different side of him.
so positive images of Black and Asian people. And through that, and through my setting up a festival, a Caribbean Arts Festival in white middle class Hampshire, I met the ambassador, who straight away said, "Are you from Trinidad?" Now, I had a moustache and curly hair. Nobody can fix me. I've been Saudi Arabian, Iraqi, Iranian, Hungarian gypsy even. Nobody could quite place where I was from. And immediately the ambassador said, "Are you from Trinidad and Tobago?" And I said, well, indirectly. This was 1986. I said I was adopted. But for some reason, I think because I'd been planning this festival, it had been raised to my consciousness. I said my father was from Trinidad. His name was Ulrich Cross. And the ambassador said, "Ulrich Cross." I was talking to him on the phone last week.
My goodness.
And through that, I met my family. I met him. And in 1986...
Did he know about you?
He knew about me, but I think he had a selective memory. I mean, he had other children. Yeah, because in fact, I wrote him a letter saying, "Dear Ulrich," he was in Trinidad, "you'll be very shocked to get this letter, but this is me, blah, 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 blah." And he wrote a letter back saying, "Dear Richard, not shocked, but surprised. I look forward to seeing you at Christmas." And we met Christmas 1986, and we continued meeting each year until he died at the age of 97 in 2013.
Goodness me.
And I went to Trinidad, and I was welcomed like a long-lost son, and it was very important. But the other significant thing is I wanted to come to Africa from the age of 9. I retired as a principal in a big London high school in 2000, at the end of 2007, and I was able to fulfill my wish of coming to Africa. And I went to Namibia to teach at the university. As soon as I arrived, I felt so much at home. Little did I know, until a little bit later, that my father had spent many, many years on the continent. In fact, he was invited to come over by Kwame Nkrumah, who was about to become the president of the first country to become independent, Ghana. And my father drew up the constitution, because after the war he trained as a lawyer. So my father was in Ghana. He drew up the constitution for Ghana. He drew up the constitution for Cameroon. And then he went as a high court judge under Julius Nyerere in Tanzania. So he spent all that time in Africa. Isn't it strange?
That is just, and you have such a love for Africa.
And I have,
because one of the things that you were telling me when I arrived yesterday was the fact that there were 2 things you wanted to do. One when you were 22 and one when you were 62. One that you achieved on both those times. Yes. And you achieved being a teacher at 22 and you achieved coming to Africa at 62.
That's right. And then decided to live here.
And how privileged are we? Because we got to keep you.
A beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful people. And I think because my wife passed away, but we liked entertaining a lot and enjoy cooking. And so I then decided, I think I'll have a guest house, but I will keep it like a home. That was nice. And so after a couple of years here, 3 years here, I made the changes that I wanted to change to make it suitable as a guest house. I opened it as a guest house, and I thought the only foolish thing is that I can't be tied down. I was getting a lot of opportunities from the British Council to travel. So I thought, well, if I'm not here, I'll close the guest house, because when there's a little less life in front of you than behind you, and you get opportunities to travel, as I did, to Ethiopia several times, Egypt, Burundi, Rwanda, Peru.
And I think one of the most exciting things about being in your situation is that you can travel, because it's okay to close the guest house.
Yeah.
I think so many people retire, they build or they buy a guest house, they turn their homes into a guest house, and they find themselves, for want of a better word, unable to leave.
Of course, yeah.
And I'm always thinking, But it's your home.
Yeah.
If you choose to close it for a time period, it's not like a hotel where people are transient all the time.
And it's not a business strictly. It's inviting
I
get
people
my
to stay
pension.
at home.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I get my pension.
So how awesome that you were able to say it's okay to close my home and move and go and travel and come back and carry on.
Fortunately, I didn't have to after a couple of times because I had a very good friend who looked after it magnificently, and I've got others that are willing to do that.
I'm sure they are, because it's a beautiful home.
So that's fine.
So now that we know a little bit about Richard, tell me a little bit about the guest house.
Well, it seems to live up to its reputation in terms of the word Ekhaya was one of the. I learned a little bit of Zulu when I first came, and the word Ekhaya was one of the first words I learned, and it was strange. I thought I'm going to have a guest house, and I'm going to call it Ekhaya. I think Ekhaya is such a beautiful word, and it means more than the English word home.
Correct.
There's something about it, and so when guests come, they say, "Oh yes, it is Ekhaya," and so that makes me very happy. So in a way, I'm sharing my home,
which is awesome.
And the income I get from guests, which is very, very necessary, just helps the upkeep, because I could not normally with my pension keep up a home of this size.
Magnitude, because it's beautiful. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the layout and what you can offer.
Well, what I made, I've got 3 rooms downstairs, 3 double rooms, although one will fit 3 beds. Or I had some of the beds specially made so that when they're joined together, there's a fitted mattress and fitted sheets. It's like a queen size bed. So I have 3 rooms downstairs, and I have a family room, big family room upstairs, which has a separate bathroom and jacuzzi and a separate toilet, and can seat 4 or 5. So I can accommodate 11 people or 12 if there are children, and that size is perfect for me because I can give personal attention.
And have you got a system or a company that picks up people from the airport, or do they organize their own transport?
What happens is that I will, if it's just a couple or something like that, then I will do that.
Awesome.
Or I organize somebody to do it if it's a larger number. I have a wonderful cleaner who's been with me for 6 years. She is fantastic. And I have somebody that does the garden, somebody that comes in weekly to do the pool. It's the first time in my life I've had a swimming pool. We don't have them in England unless you're very rich. And anyway, you couldn't use them. And the upkeep of a pool surprised me, actually. There's quite a lot that needs there. But I have to say that when I bought the house, and houses in England are small and expensive, so I was very fortunate in using the money that I got from my small house in the south of England to buy this house. At the age of 65, I moved here, and I said to my friends, at last I've made it in life. I've got 5 toilets. so that was kind of the pinnacle of my success.
And what a lovely way to equal success. We were talking about that yesterday with the client and saying, isn't it funny how people, they attribute success equals money. But actually, success can be so many things, because success to each person has a different meaning. So in your case, I think it's wonderful to attribute your success to having a wonderful lifestyle at the age of 78. And I think that's what you've achieved, certainly. The welcoming that I got yesterday when I arrived was all attributed to the fact that you're such a warm human being. And I think when we stay in a guest house, we want the host to almost be our friend, even though we don't know them. We're moving into their home. So therefore we need to feel that whole, we're welcome, thank you for sharing my home, as if I was a friend anyway. Whereas a hotel, it doesn't matter if you don't like the staff, and it really is irrelevant because you go there, you book a room, you stay, you move out. There's no friendships involved. But when it comes to a guest house, a very personal experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I decided after just talking to some guests when I first opened, I had a gut feeling I didn't want to put televisions in the rooms, and the rooms are not big. But I just didn't want televisions in the rooms. I thought they coming here to the beach and to lots of other things. But I have a well, it's projected onto the screen in my lounge, so that I can do seminars.
It's the cinema experience. Let's not worry about the seminar. It's a cinema.
Yeah. And so I always say to guests, I always make a point to say to guests, please, if you see me sitting in the lounge, it's not my lounge, it's our lounge.
That's awesome.
I say that straight away so that they feel relaxed.
So the cinema evening is there. When I arrived yesterday and I saw it, I thought, now that's a screen. So moving on to the business side, you were talking about seminars and being able to host seminars. How does that work?
Well, I need to get it up and running a little bit now, but generally what happens is, because during the time I've been here, I've also, through the British Council and also independently, I've run quite a number of courses for teachers, professional development training courses, mainly teachers who are teaching English as an additional language. And so I've also run some courses on leadership and management, using my experience as a principal and as senior member of staff and lecturer in England. So I run courses for teachers. I also go into schools and I support teachers teaching matric, particularly English, the literature texts, because I love literature. And once a teacher, always a teacher. So I still work occasionally with matrics on their prescribed
What was
texts.
your subject as a teacher?
My subject was drama. I did the very first degree at London University in 1963 on drama and theatre in education. I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a teacher. I was almost pushed into the drama department because I'd done school plays at school, that I excelled in. And when I graduated in 1966, through a very, very innovative Minister of Arts called Jenny Lee, whose husband actually founded the National Health Service in 1948. In the 1960s, she was Minister of Arts, and she, in fact, rubber-stamped drama as an important subject in the curriculum. So drama was and still is, a compulsory subject for children when they start secondary school. Drama, music, and art, which sadly doesn't happen in our government schools here, and I'm sad.
And you know, as Africans, we're so in tune with music and beat, and you know, the African drum that beats, and one would wonder why that wouldn't be an option. And it brings out so many awesome things within you. Your inner child just loves to play.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can do that openly.
Yes.
You know, to be able to play.
Yeah. So for nearly all of my teaching career, even when I was lecturing at Birmingham University, when I was training teachers, it was drama in education. And
that
my
is
work
so cool.
in Europe was with youth theatre and international drama seminars. And in fact, I'm going back to Bulgaria in June, because it's their 20th anniversary of their youth festival, which they have every other year. So they've been running it for 40 years, and I was involved in the very early stages of that festival. Well, from the time I came to South Africa, I had decided that I would open a guest house. My late wife and I used to enjoy hospitality, looking after people, cooking, and this kind of thing. And now I had the opportunity of this beautiful house. I thought I would open a B&B. I could tell that it would accommodate 12 people. And I didn't want more than that because I wanted to keep it like a home. And that was why I called it Ekhaya, which is one of the first Zulu words I learned. And I'm glad to say when people arrive, they do say, this is home. I don't have any notices anywhere. No this, no that, please do not. It's totally free of notices. All I say to guests when they arrive is I have two rules. One is no smoking in the house, and the second rule is to relax, chill, and enjoy yourself.
And you have to tell me a little bit about the breakfast. I loved your breakfast story.
Well, yes. I serve breakfast at a time to suit my guests because I don't want any kind of pressures of having to get up quickly or they'll miss breakfast. And I serve a buffet breakfast, a wide selection of fruits, of cereals. Sometimes, although I haven't for you, Geniene, I make homemade scones and homemade muffins, so next time I must do that. Cereals, cheeses, cold meats, eggs, and if guests ask for cooked breakfast, then of course I will give it. And the nice thing is one can linger over breakfast here, which is something we don't normally do. We normally have breakfast on the hop.
On the hop. So tell me, how do people reach you? Where do they find you? How do they book?
Yeah, they can either book online. I have a website, but they can book online through booking.com or a number of the online accommodation platforms, or contact me direct. I'm in a very good position. I'm only a 15-minute walk to the beach or 3 minutes by car. I'm 15-20 minutes from the airport, so I get quite a lot of international guests. In fact, I call my guest house United Nations, because in the last week I've had people from Mozambique, Italy, Germany, France and Holland. And I enjoy doing it. You cannot run a guest house unless you love people and you love what you're doing. And I have a very good support staff, a small staff, a helper who cleans and makes the beds, changes the beds. I have someone who maintains the pool, and I have gardeners.
And what is your email? What is your web address and your email?
Right, my email is lowercase richard.finch, VSO, V for Victor, S for Sugar, O for Olive, at gmail.com.
And your website?
www.ekhayaballito.co.za.
Thank you. And it was so nice to stay here. Thank you so much for having me.